All right, so here's the base corner pie cut 3-drawer cabinet. Cabinet's only available in 39 to 42 inches, and it's only in those two sizes, not in a range. There's no custom sizing on this one. It's either 39 or 42. Only available 31.5 high to 34.5 high, and it's only available in overlay. So this is a powerhouse cabinet Conestoga came out with about 4 months ago. Lots of custom cabinet lines had it, but nobody's had the guts to try to make one like this in an RTA format. So we're going to try to assemble this bad boy today and show you how this whole thing went and how we got to this point. But it's a great cabinet. Conestoga miters the drawer fronts for you. They die into the corner here, so you can put all those on. The drawer boxes, full extension soft close. They give you partitions that the glides mount to. It's a pretty remarkably built cabinet and very, very heavy. So we'll get right into the assembly now and show you how it goes. All right, this base corner pie cut 3-drawer is, we used to call the base Lazy Susan the mother of all cabinets. This is now the new mother of all cabinets. We're going to show you how to assemble this, but I want to stress that this is the first one known to be gone through the assembly process, so even Conestoga is anxious to see how this turns out. What we're going to do is walk you through the parts and then go ahead with the assembly. What you're going to get, like you do with the base Lazy Susan, is a left side, a right side, a top and a bottom, two backs that kind of come together at the back corner, a small corner strip at the back, and then the two front frame pieces, which I have here. But this cabinet has a bunch of additional pieces in the form of two upright partitions that carry your drawer glides, so your pie cut drawer boxes can slide in and out. And you also get a fully disassembled removable toe kick. And the reason is these cabinets only come in 39 and 42 inches wide. If they were to build the toe kick box into the cabinet sides, it would be way too big to get through your conventional doorway. So they have to give you a separate toe kick box. You'll build the normal cabinet box, build your toe kick box, and set that on top of that platform when you're doing your cabinet installation. So what we got here, I want to show you first, is the front frames. You could really reference the original base Lazy Susan cabinet assembly that we showed in a previous video. This box assembles quite the same way. What makes it a little bit different, and we're going to try something new here today, is the front frames. You can see have the openings for the drawer boxes. I have these upside down right now. Let me flip them. They have these openings for the drawer boxes, and when you marry these two into the corner, they're made to overlap. If you can see, they're made to like railroad over the top of each other. So one frame is 3/4 of an inch longer than the other. When you railroad these together, our worry is if we put the frame on last, which is what the original base Lazy Susan cabinet assembly video shows, we have these unsupported members that we somehow have to get inside the cabinet then and tack these in place. We're going to try a different assembly here today for this cabinet by assembling the frames together and then building the cabinet into that frame structure. So that's how we're going to do this box. We recommend you watch both the original video and this one and choose the method you're most comfortable with. The end result is going to be the same, but what we really want is these to be very, very rigid. So we're going to get to work on these front frames and then go into the assembly itself. Stick with us. Okay, so our good friend Mark Bittinger, who many of you have had cabinets assembled and maybe even installed in your house. Mark is the one who did that for you. We do have a assembly service if you're near and around the Harrisburg area. But Mark has gone ahead, and if you can see that, he's run a screw, pre-drilled, and then run a screw into each of these to hold it into the end of these members here. And the reason it's important to pre-drill that is if you just run a screw in there, you will crack this member here. So you've got to make sure you use the proper size pre-drill. The screw should pretty much pass through that hole with ease. You don't want to have to force it through, it'll crack. So this is now a rigid member, and we're going to lay that face down. And this is where we're going to assemble this more like a wall corner pie cut. So I'm sorry, a wall corner shelf unit, WCS unit. We have another video that shows that, but basically before I start, I'll walk you through what we're going to do here. Mark and I are going to lay the top and bottom panels in and nest those into the corner. And then we run our sides, dovetailed sides, down into the side brackets or the side slots of the front frame. So it's a little bit reverse. It's a front frame down assembly, which is what most every other cabinet we offer does. But traditionally, it's front frame goes down, then your sides go in, then your top and bottom go in. Can't do that in this case because the cabinet sides are splayed. So the top and bottom go in first, then your sides. So Mark is actually going to walk us through this with me. I'm going to be his hands. We'll show you how this works. But while he's gluing up, he's going to put glue on the front frame right here on this bottom side and top side of where the top and bottom meet. And then, of course, on our normal shoulder. Again, that's normal cabinet assembly if you've watched any of our videos. But what Mark does that we want to kind of tell you is a nice little trick is when Conestoga routes out the pie cut shape of these top and bottom panels, the router has just a little bit of a radius to it. And when they come into this corner, it leaves a little bit of a radius, which means your front frame won't really nest well in that corner. He just takes a rasp file real quick and just kind of does that. He already did it, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but a couple passes with that will square up the corner in there. It's just a nice little tip. It takes you a second and a half for top and bottom, and then you'll have a nicer, tighter fit with your front frame joints. I'm going to set this over here for a second until Mark says we're ready.
We're good.
All right, take your side, Mark. We'll start with the bottom. This is where you want two people. You always want two people on these. Trying to build this by yourself would just be brutal. Good? Okay. Now you really can't see it on the camera, but what we have now is, go ahead Mark, hammer it in. What we have now, if I spin this, is a super tight joint, top and bottom, or left and right. So this is a really nice joint for a pie cut cabinet. That's going to hold up just fine by itself, and I'm going to grab the top of the cabinet. Same thing, the splines go into the groove. And we just make sure we're pressed in everywhere. All right, so now we're going to work on running our dovetailed cabinet sides down into these slots here. So where do we put those? Got one here, Mark. And my other one's over here. We got parts everywhere for this cabinet. I'll put the gun down here for a minute. So remember, you got to pre-drill or pre-glue your dovetailed slots. We've got to make sure we've got glue on those, and because the glue, when we push down, the glue is going to want to spread up. We want to be careful that we're pushing that thing down so the glue is smearing through the operation here. We don't want to glue the whole track. So Mark's gluing about 2/3 or a half. And now I got my splines. They're going to be going into the front frame. So Mark's going to guide one dovetail. I'll guide the other, and just with even pressure, we got to push that down. Once you get it about halfway, it slides good. Up top, the panels are kind of fighting you. And when you push it in, you'll kind of feel those splines lock into place. Good. All right, Mark, let's spin it. Keep going. A little more. All right. Same operation. I'll hold this if you want to glue it. All right, again, remember he's gluing the top half because as I push that down, that'll smear through the whole joint. Splines down, we line up our dovetails. I think I'm up behind you. Yeah. Go ahead. There we go. Again, once you get down about halfway, it slides better. Okay. Okay, we're now in. This is the new operation that makes this cabinet a little bit different. Going to go back to these panels here, and I'll talk you through this. There are a series of holes right across the top of the panel. One here, one here, one here, and one here. And when you put these tracks on, you're simply going to line the holes up with those pre-drills. That marks where the drawer glide goes. You don't want to use those pre-drilled holes for the screws themselves. They're too big, the screws just wallow out. You just want to go to one other hole next to it that's in fresh wood, do a pre-drill, and run your screws that come with the drawer glides in there. So again, the pre-drills are just to line it up. You should be about, don't have my tape, but I think it's about 4 1/4 or 4 1/2 inches back from the front. But again, as long as you have the front hole is lined up with the track, you got a hole and a hole lined up there, the rest of it will take care of itself. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this in. We want to make sure you can see the spacing. This is my top drawer, my middle drawer, and my bottom drawer. You can see it gets small, bigger, biggest. So I have to make sure I do the same thing. What Mark's doing.
They weren't hooked all the way through.
Perfect. These dado tracks that hold this panel have pre-drilled holes. That's where you're going to run your screw in the back to make sure you capture the 3/4 thick panel. Mark was just saying, well, they gave us a pilot hole. They didn't drill it all the way through, so we had no reference point in the back. Just take a drill with an 1/8 bit and just run it all the way through. So now we're going to go ahead. Mark, would you even bother gluing those? Or because these panels aren't really structural, I wouldn't bother. So we're just going to take this and line it up on our track. All the way down in till it strikes the back of the front frame. I'm going to spin this to show the camera. You can't really see it, but in here, the edge of that they miter it off. They actually miter off the edge for you. That edge of that is right up tight to the back of the front frame, which puts the drawer glides that I mounted to that right in line. It's perfect. All right, Mark and I moved Big Bertha onto the ground because it's just too difficult to reach on the table. But the next operation is we have our cabinet backs, which also dovetail down this way. They die into a dado route on the cabinet side, and there's a bird's mouth that is facing up. And that bird's mouth is because this back panel ultimately will sit in that bird's mouth. So you have to make sure, this is a commonly made mistake, as you start getting going too fast. You got a dovetail, you got a back, you slide it in, and you end up with a bird's mouth going that way and a butt end, a squared off end coming up. Then you got to pull the whole panel back out. It's a beast. So you want to make sure you've got the bird's mouth correct. And let's just hold that. I'm not sure if the camera can see that or not, but when I say bird's mouth, that's what I'm talking about. It's not a butt end. So now, Mark and I are going to line up the dovetails. We already glued the panel, by the way, off camera. And this one, we just push. And Mark's going to make sure it goes into our dado down there. Where's our hammer? I'll hold it while you hammer. You in?
Not yet.
I see you're moving.
Yep, we're in.
Okay, so what we end up with is the bird's mouth facing up and just a little bit of the dovetail poking out. You'll know when you're in at the bottom because you can look from the end and make sure that you're buried into that dado. Now we're going to do the same thing in reverse. Come around here and grab this cabinet back. Got your holes in the cabinet back with a dado, top and bottom. Just an easy dado, no dovetails. We're going to glue the top and the bottom. This is sort of senseless because this butt joint here where it meets the bird mouth doesn't really do anything. All this panel does is hold the rear drawer, the rear shelf pin. And we just lay that in, make sure it's seated. And then Mark's going to go ahead and pin on the scribe lines that we have. And what you will notice is Conestoga has on the cabinet backs, as per normal, they got scribe lines they've already routed. Mark pencils them in to make sure, he just runs his jig he made to make sure the scribe lines didn't wander during Conestoga's machining process. Because if that scribe line's off, you may poke a nail through the inside of the cabinet, but in this case they were all on. So Mark's going to go along and pin top and bottom of both backs. I have to say I really like Mark's assembly method for the front frame. I would even recommend doing what we did here for a normal BLS, or what we now call a base corner pie cut cabinet. Conestoga did change the nomenclature, by the way, but even without these, just a normal base Lazy Susan or corner pie cut, I would definitely do it the way Mark did with joining the front frames and doing it face down. That made a really tight box. So now we're going to move down to the floor here. The other pieces I mentioned earlier in the video that we get with this is a removable toe box. So basically it's just a platform. Frankly, you could just throw all this in the trash can and mount the cabinet to the wall and put leg levelers on it or whatever you want to do. But this is not a bad thing to have. They do have pre-drilled dowel holes. So you can see they've got dowel holes here with the receiving holes on this side, and provided the dowels come with the cabinet, you can dowel that off and let it glue up. This is the first time Conestoga's built this cabinet. I want to say we're the first customer to buy one. And what did come missing in the box was the dowels. So we don't have any dowels handy, so Mark is just going to run some of these nice fat-headed screws he uses. We're just going to screw the box together. So we'll go ahead and do that now. And then once we're done, we'll come back on camera and show you how we put the drawer boxes in and start doing our drawer front fit up. Okay, so here's our finished toe box. Again, I have to stress. Do not mount this to the bottom of the cabinet before you have this thing into the kitchen. Once it's in the kitchen, if you want to, you may, but even that is not necessary. Just take this thing and set it on the floor right in your corner, and then you and a very Herculean friend of yours can pick that thing up and set it on this box. I got to tell you, that cabinet weighs a lot. So you're gonna need a friend on this one. All right, that assembled a lot better than we thought it was going to. I'm actually really, really impressed. Went together a lot like our traditional base corner pie cut, or it used to be known as a BLS. We just had those partitions to contend with, but everything fit like a glove. And now what I want to walk you through is we went ahead and put on our drawer fronts, but I want to walk you through how we did that. So you can see here, we have holes here. What Mark did was he kind of went right into the fat framing here, through here with a pre-drill. And on all of our installation of drawer front screws, we use these GRK 1¼ trim heads, so they don't have a head on them. They're like a little small, almost like a nail gun hole. There's no dovetail hole or here that you're going to be disrupting, so you can just drill right in there and sink them there on both sides. And then right up here at the top of the drawer, we toe-nailed one in here and caught the top rail. And we did that on the bottom and the top. So we've got 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4 on all the drawers, okay? So it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. The way we did it was we pinned the drawers together. So we laid them on the L and pinned them right through the edge. We kept the pin below the drawer box level so you won't see a pinhole. And that held the drawers in kind of a V. Then we laid them on the tabletop in a V format, nested the drawer box over the top, determined where it needed to go by measuring up. And I can give you those dimensions. On full overlay, the bottom drawer is 2 1/8 up. So when I say that, this to here is 2 1/8. On this one here, it's 7/8. And on this one here, it's 3/4. This is only going to work for full overlay, but that dimension, 3/4, 7/8, 2 1/8. Strike a line, nest the drawer box over the top, pre-drill your holes and screw it tight. And that's really all there was to it. We didn't even have to use the double back tape procedure. We did all this on the bench, not with the drawer boxes mounted in the cabinet. So hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry it was a long one. It's an exceptionally complicated cabinet to build for the untrained person. So if you're like worried about pinning into the edges of drawers and doing some of these things, you might want to think twice about this cabinet. It's one of the more demanding boxes to build. And I'm going to guess an untrained person who's tackling this with a helper in their garage, you're looking at probably a 3 or 4 hour assembly total versus it probably took us an hour and a half or 2 when we've done this before. So not this cabinet, but we've done this before. So if you have any questions, always give us a call. 888-211-6482. One of your cabinet coaches can be sure to help you out. Thanks for watching.